CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get started here. If somebody would lock the doors, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you.
Keep us in or keep people out?
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see how that works out. I'm the friendly neighborhood moderator for this session. I'm Paul Hiller with the International Council for Machinery Lubrication. I would be more polite to take this hat off, but I've developed hat hair all day, and I do not want to scare anybody away. So the hat stays on, which is great because Greg here's got a hat as well, so I'm in good company. So let's just roll right into the introductions on who our panelists are today. Greg Christiansen, first chair. He's the host of CMMS Radio, a podcast about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, and a consultant leaning on his 3+ decades in CMMS, FM, maintenance management, and the like. After thousands of demos, even more client interactions and projects, and numerous deployments. Co-founder and VP Vice President of CMMS, relentlessly pursuing the elusive win-win. The podcast helps even more companies and people navigate their CMMS journey with expert guests, inspiring monologues, wow, and a no-nonsense approach that is real, raw, and relatable. If you have a CMMS project and want some insights, connect with Greg and follow CMMS Radio on your favorite podcasting medium. He's passionate about the space, and anybody who's chatted with him knows that's true. All of it, all the space, and he loves to help solve problems. Visit CMMSradio.com or fill out the request form to schedule your consultation with Greg. Our next seat is Igor Marinelli. Did I say that right?
Yep.
He graduated in computer engineering from the University of California, Berkeley. The son of an Italian industrial family, his father worked in paper and cellulose, and his grandfather in ceramics. Marinelli founded Tractian in 2019 in Atlanta, Georgia, with the goal of democratizing industrial monitoring systems. Marinelli is also a donor and sponsor of the film Unturning Steel, which reports on the struggle of U.S. veterans relocating to the American job market and the role of manufacturing in this. A programmer since he was 10 years old, Marinelli has patents granted in the area of data science applied to fault finding. Our third seat, Bryan Christiansen. Oh, he wrote his bio in first person, so I'm going to try to convert it to third person for this. Imagine Bryan saying this.
You can take credit.
Would you like to read this? Bryan is a self-taught full-stack developer turned marketer turned entrepreneur. After several failed attempts at building a company, he started Limble CMMS back in 2015. Limble is a larger success than he could have imagined, and he's blessed to be their CEO. It's truly amazing to be able to lead a company that empowers the unsung heroes who support the world. At home, he's the proud father of 3 little boys who love to run around and beat each other up.
Yeah.
His days and nights are never boring as he listens to their stories about evading bullies on the playground, tricking or even trapping their brothers, or whatever shenanigans they are up to. Maintenance professionals across a variety of industries have a very real challenge known as outdated, difficult to use, and expensive maintenance software. At Limble, they believe that you should love your CMMS, not just tolerate it. Limble CMMS was founded to become the first truly easy-to-use, modern, and mobile CMMS that can be started in minutes with a return on investment within a matter of weeks. A few years later, hold on, I'm converting to third person momentarily. They've got ecstatic and pleased customers all over the world in manufacturing, mining, hospitality, office facilities, religious parishes, energy, restaurants, agriculture, and more. Who's our fourth panelist over there is Corey Dickens. Corey brings over a decade of maintenance and operations experience to Brightly, a software company focused on cloud-based solutions for physical asset management. Before joining Brightly, he leveraged similar technologies both in the U.S. Navy and SMB, small business manufacturing. At Brightly, he talks to hundreds of manufacturers every year, helping them understand the value of maintenance, align internal understanding, and setting realistic expectations even if it doesn't involve technology. Now I'm just going to turn it over to Greg, who's going to run this show.
Thank you very much. I don't know if I'm running much, but first of all, I want to thank all of you for making the time to come in here and go through a panel that I've been working on for a couple of years. The whole concept of CMMS Versus isn't really about putting these gentlemen into the battle box. It's more about them standing shoulder to shoulder for the industry, less about competition, more about who are you, where'd you come from as a solution, how was it born, where have you come to right now, where are you going in the future, and then we're going to pepper these guys up with some maintenance and reliability questions. And we got my dog Corey Dickens right there to keep us kind of accountable on maintenance and reliability. So, gentlemen, thank you all for joining me. What I first want to start with is Igor Marinelli. Tell us briefly, maybe in a minute or two, how this started. What was the very first problem you were trying to solve when you developed and launched Tractian?
Well, it's related to my father for sure. It was in the bio briefly, but my father worked 35 years at International Paper, so whoever's from pulp and paper there will relate. Started as a technician and all the way up until maintenance manager. It's kind of a long tenure. And some of you probably will think this guy's young when I say that, but I started out on a Windows 98. So, and like Bryan too, self-taught programmer. Even though with AI, things are changing now, nomenclature-wise, because everybody can truly be. What's the concept of a programmer anymore? But and I had that passion granted from my father and drive to solve tough challenges. And we're competing here, we're collaborating, and at the same time, I think we come to conferences like that and we think, hey, this space, it's crowded, but it is not really. I mean, the space is pretty much a blue ocean still. Compared to anything that you're doing when you see in universities, everybody wants to go to OpenAI or a fintech payment services, and we wanted to solve real challenges. I wanted to do that, and in fact, the space is pretty much inviting and welcoming, and it's about boots on the ground. The moment you visit the first plant, you're going to have an idea, and then you visit the second one, and so on and so forth and so forth. So last year combined, I always like to track this, but Tractian, we've collectively visited 2,500 on-sites last year. So that's a lot of miles that we've put in. So Tractian today, we have 500 employees. Our headquarters in Atlanta. We also support operations in Mexico, down in Brazil. I'm Brazilian. Pretty much it. So.
And the idea here for everyone is we want to kind of set the stage as to how these solutions are born, and the one thing that you pointed out, Igor, about plenty of space for more players, everybody works differently, and each of these gentlemen encounter these problems that they want to solve for the industry, and we still to this day find that a lot of organizations don't have a CMMS, they don't have good data coming in, and these are the problems that we need to solve, but it's always going to boil down to the people in the process. So we're going to get to that a little bit later, but I want to kick it over to Bryan, and I want to have you tell the story about how you launched, how you taught yourself to program, and then give us a little flavor as to where you are today compared to then.
Yeah. I taught myself to program at a very young age, but I won't bore you all with that. What's way more interesting is how I found this space and why I went into this space. So about 12 years ago, I had no idea all of the amazingly difficult and important work you all do, and I was just lucky enough to be introduced to a maintenance manager, and within the first 30 seconds, he was cussing up a storm, swearing that he had to replace a $40,000 HVAC, and can I swear?
Yes.
God damn it, I gotta place another one. We didn't put this in the budget. My boss is gonna kill me. I don't know where we're getting this money, and I'm just like blown away. This is my first real exposure to all of your world.
We're not like that.
I immediately thought first from the swear words like, this is my dude. Like, fuck yeah, like he's great, right? I immediately loved maintenance professionals and facility professionals just right out of the gate. But I was looking for a really big problem to solve, and just from that first meeting, I was like, okay, like if this guy is having this reaction to a complete stranger, again, he knew me 30 seconds before he was going off, there's got to be something here. And so I spent the entire day with him, walked through his facility, trying to figure out why the HVAC broke. And it was just basically lack of maintenance. Well, why was there a lack of maintenance? Well, the technicians didn't know when to go change it, or you had a hard time holding them accountable to go do it, or A, B, C, or D, the filter wasn't in stock, and so they ordered it but then forgot about it, or whatever. And I mean, you all know the problems way better than the vast majority of people, and probably better than me, even though I've been in this space for a while. I have never been a maintenance manager like you all. But anyways, I walked through all of it, and I was like, wow, this is, like, I can solve this. I can build something that solves this. Surely someone out there must have solved this already, right? And so then I started going and looking at all the competition that was alive at that point in time. And I was just shocked. Like, the software looked like it was written 40 years ago. I was like, no wonder why technicians won't use this. This is a nightmare. Like how is this even possible? And so then I decided to go out and really talk to a lot of maintenance professionals and make sure this wasn't a fluke. And time again, it was reinforced that you all were not served anywhere to the level that you needed to be. You need great tools, and in the area of CMMS, especially at that point in time, you did not have it. And so I made it my life's mission to go fix that problem, and it's been one of the greatest blessings in my life. So that's how I got started. Where are we going today, or do you want to do that a little bit after?
We can mix that in a little bit after, because everything you just said, I think, kind of a show of hands, how much do you relate to this concept of antiquated software and you deal with these challenges yourself? Yeah? So yeah. I'd say it's pretty close to half the room, and we all seem to be wrestling with the same problems. And if we go all the way back in time, like even to the aqueducts, right? I'm kind of shouting out Christer Idheimer there, that maintenance hasn't really changed, but the concept of these reactive environments, these types of scenarios that you encountered where things are happening that don't make sense as it relates to the software, it has to kind of fit the process that they would and should be following, and making a better mousetrap is kind of what it's about, but it's also about this idea of fitting with how teams move. And the one thing that I think constantly gets neglected, not necessarily by choice, is the front line. And that's where we all kind of tend to live. And that does connect to leadership. So that's part of the reason I'm passionate about CMMS, and I wanted to start showcasing competitors that can show up for you rather than competing. Now, one important distinction I wanted to make specific to Tractian is, although they have CMMS functionality, and we see Tractian, Limble, even Brightly, and a lot of the other players that run into each other and compete, Tractian is really a machine health data machine, is the way I like to describe it. That wouldn't be Igor's words necessarily, but I want to bring Corey into the mix on this, because with Corey not only being a referee, being a maintenance and reliability professional himself, and understanding how these things all connect, would you, Corey, say that those are kind of the standard impetus or catalyst as to how solutions get built?
I mean, even to valid both of your points about how you got started, Igor, yours is, it was probably a little bit of you wanting to replicate what your father dealt with all those years, right? Someone just like a therapy session loaded things onto you, right? And that was 2015. You came later, 4 years, right? Probably around the time you were doing that. There's another company out there that has a very similar story. They said a very similar thing about an environment they were in. So a question for both of you. We've been going digital for 30 years with CMMS. You say it's a blue ocean. We know if you go to softwareadvice.com, whatever, there's a million options. What is the reason you have found people are still not on these modern tools?
A lot of people just don't know better. They don't know that there's a solution out there. that's better. It's like they're stuck in a bad marriage and don't know that they can escape it, you know. And so it's honestly, I thought when I discovered the problem so long ago, I thought like, wow, like in 6 years, 7 years, we we'll be able to go through the entire market because it's so incredibly impactful. But the adoption's just been slower because people don't look for it as much. They don't realize that there's a better mousetrap out there to do it. And that's why we do events like this. We want to come help educate and let y'all know that there are much better solutions out there. So I think it's an education problem. I also think it's a generational problem. Some of the older generations have a harder time adopting technology, so they're really just like don't want to change. But I'm even seeing that change. Like we have 60-year-old technicians use Limble and just go and never swap it back. And so it's coming. It's slow, but it's most definitely coming.
The way I see it, I'm seeing a lot of passion and drive from technicians, engineers to want to change, and a lot of knowledge actually that something different is out there. But the problem is back to the system of records and the change management that's associated, and especially in relation to higher management and how conservative those decisions are. Because the CMMS sort of sits laterally on top, you name it, on the system of records. Right? And there's a lot of misunderstanding on what is SAP. SAP truly is an ERP system. A work order is not a financial document, but yet it seems for the CFO that it is, even though it is not. The labor, you've already paid for it. It's pretty much KPI at this point. What you're transiting that's important for accounting is spare parts. That's what's being consumed. But migration was a pain in the ass. Until pretty much AI, I would say, until generative AI, vibration was really a nightmare. Hours and hours and hours of implementation services or Accenture or whatever. Right now it's possible. Right now AI has fixed a lot of that, but is it possible, behaviorally speaking, to make that change? And 60% of the market's still running on a combination of SAP PM or older versions of IBM Maximo, right? And so it's not fun for anybody, and they want to change. We want to change, yet who holds that decision to change? And it's sort of courageous enough to do it, not only to mention IT is involved. When they hear software, IT comes into play. But if they hear sensors, condition monitor, etc., all of a sudden you can tap into maintenance budget. So I think the CMMS also sometimes goes to the maintenance budget and then it's plain vanilla. Sometimes it will say, no, this will roll up all the way to IT, and then good luck with that. You can go all the way to Sweden, and then you're having that discussion. So there's a lot of desire to change, but there's a lot of old behavior on-premise. How many times you've asked? I've been asking a lot about on-premise. So we want to change. We want that. We want the new software, but we also want the software to be installed here. And this is just behavior, because you can have data ownership without being in your server. That's contractual. So how much can we move and out of that essentially gap?
That is most definitely something that holds back, but I'd counter a little bit. And I know your reps, your sales teams do that. We both teach our sales teams to help our customers navigate how do you go talk to your CFO, how do you talk to your IT, and like if there's an IT that's stuck on-premise because they've been in a cave for 20 years, like I know your sales reps do it too. We can help coach the potential customers to do that. So it's most definitely a slowdown, but it's not insurmountable by any stretch of the imagination.
You know, as you guys described this, and Corey, I hope you don't mind me tagging on the question.
It's your panel.
The whole
There's a referee, right?
It's our panel now, right? All of us.
I can't whistle.
I want to call out and I don't know if I don't necessarily mean this in a harsh way, like to tear anybody down, but I want to call out leadership, because leadership always owns the system. There's no debating that. And leadership continues to fail to understand the value of making these investments, replacing those antiquated softwares, and building processes that actually work, that actually move the needle from a maintenance and to the reliability kind of outcome we're really after. And I hope it's fair, but I think that has to be called out, because I think that's another place where change can effect better adoption, better integrations, and really pushing these technologies to drive our existing great behaviors that we can't quite get right because we're kind of running around in a reactive state. Leadership fails to see the value. They might want to, but they're busy doing all their leadership things. So that's another thing we have to improve. But I want to kick it back over to you, Corey, because I think with what their responses were, you might have a follow-up to that, because you see some of these same things unfold yourself. You've been in a factory, you've been on the plant floors, you've been doing this for several years now. Does that feel like what they said, and adding in the leadership component as where our problems exist when it comes to adoption, change, and improvement?
To your first point, I don't 100% disagree that there's a lack of knowledge that other tools, other type of systems exist. You can just go on ChatGPT right now or Google, and all the SEO is going to come up, right? You're going to see whoever's paying for the top spot that day. It doesn't surprise me how many people still are like, oh, I didn't know this was a category of software, right? Then the question's like, okay, what rock have you been living under? I think at the crux of it still becomes, we come to conferences like this, we go to SMRP, we sit here and we congregate ourselves and talk about our problems, and then we don't go back and build a relationship with IT. We don't go build a relationship with someone else in the business who actually owns the product, the SAP of the world, right? And say, work with me here to evaluate where the gaps are, right? I've done on-sites too, and never surprising, they have a desktop set up somewhere, and technicians are expected to rotate out every 20 minutes and sit down and log the work orders. And it's just, it's not an effective use of their time, right? They get paid to stay out there and keep things from failing, or be there quick to get it back up in running order if you're kind of a volume type business. It comes down to relationships. How do you speak? How do you connect with the rest of the business? And can you build those relationships? I pushed for a CMMS implementation. I knew there were types of softwares out there. I didn't realize how many. And then that became another challenge of evaluating and really understanding what was what and who's actually a fit for me. But then it became, I was right there at the finish line. I thought I had done everything right. IT came in and hit me from one angle. Finance hit me from another angle. Another department wants to play into this game. Can they help be a champion? So both points are valid.
Yeah, it's something there.
Absolutely.
Because we just keep hearing, like, and throughout the conference here too, like, it's the people, it's the culture, correct the people and so on, correct the culture, and things will follow. But I just keep wondering, some on sites that we go, that, like, my thought is, like, has the CEO ever been here? Has, you know, if the CEO of that company, of that manufacturing plant, would utilize the software, because it's fun to push for cultural change and all of that, go there and input this work order yourself. You know, so how much of culture and people can you change without the proper systems? Now, of course, I say that from a biased point of view. We sell systems. But at the same time, I mean, it's an artisan without the proper tool. And that's what I see a lot as well. And it's
I think, does everybody agree that this feels like it's all really linked, and it's kind of a same kind of process we're all dealing with in our various environments? Show of hands. Okay, a few of you. You had a question, Mark?
Yeah, I've been in pulling wrenches for 45 years. I've been over 30 years in the reliability game. And when I look at the CMMS systems, maintenance is always the last consideration for whatever site the site has bought. I've been involved in over 40 different programs in my career in reliability, but the people that are choosing the software, the CMMS system, they're looking at the financial, the production schedules, and all that other stuff is tracking. And then you got guys are out there selling a CMMS system, says, yeah, we can do all that. We can kind of do maintenance, but maintenance isn't really important for
Well,
Tractian.
So I think, and I want to make sure I understand, when you say they're going out to get a CMMS, you mean they're going out to like pick a MES or ERP or something like that, and then maintenance is an afterthought there?
Yeah, one facility I was at, when they adopted SAP,
Yeah.
you know, it was, to write a work order, it was 9 pages long.
Yeah.
And they didn't fall in order. You went from like page 1 to page 7 to page 3 to page 6. You know, it was a mess, and you got guys who don't want to mess with a computer anyway.
Yep.
And they're told to use it, but it was fantastic for their financial, for storeroom, for everything else. But nobody, I see a lack of communication when they start looking at it, because financial's looking at what they want, and they're the ones purchasing that has the power to buy it, but they're not going out and talking and putting everybody in the same room and seeing what do we need that solves everybody's problems. Is that something you guys run into?
So all the time, we've seen customers run into that. And just to be crystal clear, we're not trying to replace SAP. We do want to replace SAP PM, but to like remove an ERP is just, it's dead in the water. And that's also because we're not an ERP. We don't do all of the things that SAP does. And so how we figured out how to navigate this for our customers is you don't have to buy us when they're looking at which ERP. You buy us later on and integrate it into whatever ERP you have. That way you kind of get the best of all worlds. It satisfies the finance people, and it most definitely satisfies the maintenance people. But the integration is key to have that happen. Because you're right, most of the time, like if they're setting up a new mine or something, they're not going to be thinking about maintenance. They're going to be thinking about production, all these other things, and trying to get that off the ground first. They only really start thinking about maintenance when a catastrophe happens, and it goes, how the hell did we let this happen? It's like, oh, well, we weren't doing PMs. It's like, okay, well, duh. And so adding a CMMS later is most definitely doable. Now, doing it at the beginning would be the most ideal, but people don't always do it at the beginning.
Well, that, and to Mark's point and everything that you're saying, this is that kind of top-down approach where they don't see maintenance because it's hiding in the balance sheet. They don't get out on the plant floor. They don't go spend time with the people. They don't go and put in a work order. They don't go and talk to Joe or Jill or John and say, hey, what are you dealing with that is making it difficult for us to get the data from the front line? And rather than pick on SAP or any system out there, this is that kind of overarching theme of where we really do need leadership to really see everything that they have, and we know that they're busy, so they need a little bit more, or maybe a lot bit more, of education and understanding of what they're really about to invest in. And that, I think, is kind of the spirit of what you were talking about, Mark, because they, maybe I'm wrong, they expect maintenance is just doing their maintenance things, and we don't need to really know and understand that, and that's absolutely not the case. So, Corey, you had something to add.
I mean, just to your point, we go back at the history where you talked about the on-prem. You're looking at solutions that used to, you would buy one time up front, the services to install it. You wouldn't want to buy these kind of separate systems and all have to add the storage and add the server and blah, 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 right? I think with cloud, we've democratized that quite a bit. But again, there's still an educational piece to it. We look at it from the maintenance perspective. We understand on the maintenance, if we map out all the functions and all the processes and all the interminglings and relations of everything we do on a daily basis, finance doesn't see that. Finance, for the most part, sits at a desk, right? They figure out real quick where those clicks on the screen are. 9 pages for a work order, those are very quick for them. They don't understand all the they don't have the education, we don't have the relationship with them to educate them, all the functions of maintenance, right? They see a integrated and easier to manage inventory system with their inventory, and then some work orders. And we're not even talking about the same work orders. Production work orders, maintenance work orders, 2 different things. I can't tell you how much education I have to do on that up front with people in demos, right? So that's the point. It's education, and it's looking at things from their perspective and building that relationship with them. Because if you build a champion in IT, finance, operations, and then you go to leadership for signature, it's a lot harder for them to say no. Especially if like, hey, let's try this for a year. I think all of our systems are SaaS and you can try it for a year.
That's that's spot on. And then the other thing I would add to it is you should plan for if any of your champions then exit, leave, get a new job, whatever, right? You got to have some contingency plans for that. But I want to switch it up now and get into a little bit more about maintenance. So I'm going to ask you guys to answer a really direct question. You answer as best you can, and we'll see where this goes. We'll start with you, Igor. Please tell us 2 very, very specific things that Tractian does that makes a direct positive impact on maintenance and reliability. Be as specific as you can.
So, before I address these 2 points, just pointing out that we took a very different approach. And the difference of approach is that knowing what we've just said, the system of records, the preferences, how hard it is to change, and pretty much, you can pretty much fall in love with a solution like Limble, for example, and it's a fantastic solution, it's the right solution for you. So we took the approach of if you're greenfield, you can use Tractian CMMS, so starting from scratch, your facility doesn't have anything and so on. Then we're competing for that customer and wrestling. Oh, you already use Limble. Let's connect. So we pretty much stopped the game of trying to replace, trying to migrate, and just realize that's counterproductive. Right? So that's one thing actually that we do extremely well. It's combining that data. And then I'll answer the first point. So the first point, we start at condition. We start at ultrasound, vibration, magnetic field temperature. We look at your asset, at the reliability and the PF curve, and we try to score your asset there. And we look at files. We connect to work orders, whether this work order is running on Tractian system, whether it's running on Limble. We'll parse that oil analysis file. We'll read it back to our system and score back here on essentially a health level. What we're doing is basically prioritizing time. That's what we do, very direct way, on a scale of the 100 to the thousands of assets that a customer of us has, essentially. What are the 10 assets that I'm going to spend my time this week? What are the other 10 that I'm going to spend my time next week? And this requires as well bill of materials, enriching data through data sheet, through OEM. That is extremely hard to do if you're not running on a cloud system, if you're not sharing data, extremely hard to do on SAP. How many of you have a structured ISO standard asset tree, right? It's generally a mess. But that is, breaking that OEM dependency is key to make a fast decision and not be four hours in the line trying to get a bearing code. And the OEM is not with you in that game. It is, I think we can say that, it is very much their game to sell you aftermarket parts and guide that information and hold that information, especially if it's a air compressor business. If it's a box and there's a bunch of stuff inside, you're cooked. It's going to take a while to get any data from there. But once you do it for one customer, all other customers can have a shared collaboration on those files, because an Atlas Copco Kaiser, Ingersoll Rand compressor data, it's not the formula of ketchup of Kraft Heinz. It's pretty much data of common knowledge and common sense, and that's what we believe in.
So this, and you can go ahead and answer now, Bryan, and then we're gonna let Corey come over the top.
So there's a couple really core areas that our customers get value, right? Preventing downtime. Everyone understands how expensive downtime is. Reducing spare part spend, whether that's getting cheaper parts or less overnighting or whatever the case may be. And then, of course, making your technicians more efficient so that they can spend more time chipping away at that backlog, which then, of course, causes less downtime and whatnot. And so the value proposition, how do we help our customers, is really trying to save those 3 financial dollar points, which ironically you can use to go talk to your CFO and others to show them, because they don't care about technician's life is better. They care about, hey, there's less capital expenditures, less spare parts. Like they count beans, right? Not my sister's an accountant. I love accountants, but yeah, that's their job. And so we do that a little bit different than Tractian here. Our big job is helping our customers move up the maintenance maturity curve. And what I mean by that is when you go talk with a lot of customers, and maybe some of you know this already, most people start off on reactive. That's where everyone starts. Then you get to preventative, and then you get to predictive, and you keep going up this curve. Now, Limble's done a really, really good job helping you go from that reactive to preventative. And then once you start going to predictive, we start leaning on partners, which is one of the services that Tractian does with all the monitoring of the equipment with their sensors and whatnot. And so we help unlock different levels of the spare part spend and technician efficiency and downtime, depending on where that customer is in that curve. And we've done a really, really, really good job helping people very quickly move up that curve and unlock value so that they can prove to a CFO, hey, don't just keep this at one plant, spread it out to all 20. It's a no-brainer. But that is the core value that we offer.
All right. Now, Corey, with what you've heard here from a maintenance and reliability professional perspective, that didn't come out real well. Like, where does the rubber meet the road on what both Igor and Bryan said about their value propositions and what it does for maintenance and reliability? Because you might have a slightly different take on it.
So I'll just turn around and ask another question to both of you. Software's one piece, right? The people still have to get it. What was, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Give me an example or tell me your approach that is different. So your approach that is different from the rest of our competitors, your approach is different from your competitors as far as how you coach them to get it up and running. What is something unique about your approach?
Yeah, and I can start in connecting to Bryan's point here. I mean, even in this short conversation, we already spot other differences. Tractian is not your best partner if you're running reactive today, right? So this is something that
you're telling me if I put sensors on things, I'm not all of a sudden up here on the maturity curve? It doesn't fix all my problems?
That's not how it works.
Not world-class planning and scheduling?
I wish it was how it works. That's not how it works. I mean, and truly, you've pointed out in a brilliant way, like, moving up the maturity curve, right? Like, the way we design our solution, and perhaps it's back to my father again, but I'm biased towards continuous processes, process industries, discrete manufacturing, things that are running 24/7, etc. So, and generally, every time that we go to one side, if they're running reactive, we're like, hey, we're not the best partner, right? And we can recommend Limble, for example. They're going to take you up to here. It's a big job to do. Once you have your preventive plans and so on, we think we can impact more, because we're going to be looking at extending that asset lifetime. You're going to be more organized. You're going to have your shit together, and then we can start talking about a true predictive maintenance program. If you're short-circuiting that and trying a predictive maintenance program and we get there, right, you don't have a grease room, nothing is in order. There are many steps that you can take, and I think it addresses your people point here. There are many steps prior that you can take.
And to answer your question, it really depends. One of the biggest things that we do that's different than a lot of competitors out there, especially the older competitors, Igor and his team has done a good job at it, to be fair, but we have put a lot of time and energy and resources into really helping our customer, understand this specific customer, where are they at on that curve, and how do we help them move? Because we would do, and to Igor's point, we'd be doing a huge disservice for someone that is 100% reactive to say, hey, go install sensors everywhere. It's like giving them the keys to a Ferrari, and when they've only ridden a bike, it's like they're going to crash into a wall, everything's going to burn, and the CFO is never going to trust them with any project ever again, which completely blows up. And so we spend a lot of time and energy really understanding, okay, what are the core problems? Where are you at on the curve? How can we take you to that next step so that 6 months down the road, 12 months down the road, you take it to the next one and then the next one, and help you over years really build a world-class maintenance operation and get you further up that curve. The other thing I'll add to this is just when I started the company and went out and actually talked to the first maintenance technicians, I'll never forget, I shook the hand of one and I looked down and I was like, holy crap, his thumbs are twice the size of mine. I immediately went back to our mobile application and reprogrammed it to be like, holy cow, no wonder why technicians are hating some of the mobile apps that are out there. Their buttons are too small. And there's just tons of these little things like that where we focused really hardcore, and today we still have that focus. Ease of use, ease of use, ease of use. Because if it's difficult, you're not going to be able to get success, and you're not going to be able to go up that curve. And those two things, really understanding our customers well and how to move them up that curve, and two, making software that is just absolutely world class when it comes to ease of use, that really helps adoption, and that really helps people get going.
First, to be fair, in 2015, iPhones were kind of small.
Yeah,
right.
Fair.
I think I got normal size hands, right? above average, whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah.
iPhone's kind of easy, hard to use.
Kind of a funny story, maybe more funny for me, but we had a reseller in the Philippines forever ago, and they tried to put it on a phone that was maybe the size of this, like it was a third the size of those iPhones, and then they're like, "Hey, this is hard to use," and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like if the phone's that small, there's nothing we can do to help you. Yeah. Sometimes you have to say, "Sorry, customer, we can't help."
I mean, fair. And Igor, you brought up a good point. First, the first step of recovery is admitting there's a problem, right? And sometimes that means the software saying like who I'm for and who I'm not, right? And that's, if you're brutally honest in a sales process, I think that builds a lot of trust with people. Yep. So kudos if your team is doing that. If you're not, I highly suggest you start doing it. I try to do something very similar, coach our team. To your point, coaching those clients through that. Again, also understanding, me working more on the solutions side, I kind of understand what roles may own that. So for you, what roles own that maturity and that coaching of the client to check in with them 6 months? Because after 6 months, right, implementation's done.
Yep.
Who's owning that relationship?
So who inside Limble is owning the relationship, or who inside the customer is owning the project? So we have a role called Customer Success Manager. We also have a role called an Account Manager. And both those roles are fully designed for helping the customer grow and thrive. The CSM is about getting used to the software. The AM is helping us figure out how to unlock more value. And so a CSM, for example, may help them nail to the preventative maintenance curve, but the AM may be able to come in and say, hey, now it's time, we can help move you up to that predictive maintenance curve, and here's the potential new solutions that can help you do that. And so those two types of roles work together to help our customers move up the curve. And we don't just get a customer on and then 6 months implementation's done and be like, see ya. Right? One of the great things about how SaaS is structured is we have to earn your business every single year because it's a subscription. And if we don't keep investing in our customers, eventually, they'll find the next CMMS that isn't neglecting them. And we don't want to do that. We love our customers. We are here to win with our customers. And just getting to the end of the 6 month implementation and say peace, we're out, it's bad business, honestly. And so we'll do things like quarterly business reviews or semi-annual business reviews where we meet with them every 3 months or 6 months or 12 months or whatever the customer wants in order to say, okay, here's the goals that you set out, we're accomplishing them, we're moving up the curve, here's reports that you might be able to share with the finance people to show the impact that you're doing. It's a very consultative might be the wrong word. We're a partner with our customers, and that makes a world of difference versus just like an on-prem software where you buy it, set it on the box, and you never hear from the vendor ever again.
Cool question. How many CSMs do you have roughly?
I think we have about 15 to 20. I might be off on that though.
So I gotta kind of cut everybody off. This happens with every single panel I've ever run where we really get going and we start getting into the kind of meat of what we all want to talk about, but we run up against time. And I always want to make sure we have at least a little bit of time for somebody to ask a question, because we're down to about 5 minutes. I was hoping to do it at 10. but we really wish we were up
My
here for
bad.
another 30 minutes.
VAR took a little bit longer.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. I think, does everybody agree, good stuff so far? And you don't have to be nice if you didn't like it, you can tell me. I'm okay with that. Does anybody have a question for anyone up here on the stage? All right, Mark, you're up.
We got a few of them, so.
We're in, what, 2026, and I'm not seeing anybody up here. You guys are talking about getting information into the CMMS system. I'm not hearing anybody up here talking about doing it by voice. I got guys out there that are out there punching the clock in the trenches, turning the wrenches, that don't want to be on a computer and spend 20 minutes typing out what they did. But they more than gladly give you a 30-second spiel of what was done, what was changed. I can talk into it, and I can spit it out and migrate it right into your system.
Yeah,
If I
so
can take it real quick, as long as it's not a flip phone, most phones now have voice to text.
yeah, so
So it's a free text input.
I know they have that, but
Right.
it doesn't go into a CMMS system.
but it does. So I have the Limble app on my phone, and so let's say I'm a technician, I walk in, immediately pull up the app. Oh, I need to go do a PM on a conveyor belt or whatever the case may be. I walk over there, start seeing what I should do, check a couple boxes, change the belt, and then there's a description box, for example, describe what you do. All you do is just push the talk to text button on your phone, explain what I did, and you're done. And so that technology is here today, and it's actually, this is part of the problem with the education problem I was saying a little bit earlier, is like people just don't know all the amazing features and functionality and things that can really drastically improve your team's lives, because that's been there for years.
Is that
well,
talks to
we've only
text?
got-
Does it fill in any drop-down boxes at all?
So there is the idea with AI to be able to do a lot more, whereas you talk to it, it can do stuff. We don't have that today, just to be crystal clear. But that type of concept where you can talk with your software more, AI is going to unlock so many, or is already unlocking so many opportunities.
And the technology exists out there. There are solutions out there that have the interface for you to literally talk to your CMMS. Not everybody's there yet, but they all have their eyes on it. Is that fair to say, gentlemen?
Yeah, in case of Tractian, just to add real quick, we do it through iMessage. So we have an assistant for iMessage. So we took it even further. So it's you actually send audios, describe whatever, and you're talking with an agentic system through iMessage, like a chat or WhatsApp.
All right, we got about 2 minutes.
We had a few more hands up, so.
Yeah.
We can go up
you
there.
ready? Yes.
So I'm a reliability engineer, and sometimes I have to do things like advise the company to do like repair versus replacement, or replacement versus repair. The first CMMS I ever used was SAP, and SAP was good because your PO, like it does the whole ERP thing, so I can directly identify all the costs to the assets because it's looking at manpower, it's looking at spares, it's looking at POs to my vendors.
Yep.
But I feel like with newer CMMS, if I'm trying to decide how much I've spent on repairing a piece of equipment to decide if it's worth repairing it or to just replace it, I feel like a lot of CMMS do not have that kind of integration. I have to go into my PO system to figure out, probably from knowledge or asking my techs, which POs or what vendors did you create POs for, right? So that integration to determine in one spot the total costs of maintaining an equipment, I feel like that has kind of been lost recently in the newer CMMS. So what do you guys have to offer in terms of like full life cycle cost for equipment?
Yeah, it's all built inside Limble, and then also with the integration to SAP, all the data can move over there if you prefer to look at it in SAP versus Limble. But we track spare parts costs, we track downtime costs, labor costs, costs to your vendors, things of that nature. So very easily and very quickly, you can go look at an asset and say, okay, in the last year, I spent $20,000 just maintaining it. 10 of that was through spare parts, etc. And the asset only, cost 50 grand, but with spending 20 grand on the maintenance in a single year, we probably should replace this. And so all of that is again things that our customers have been doing for years now. Now, why newer CMMSs, some of them aren't doing it, it's probably because they're brand new. One of the nice things about both of our companies is we've had enough maturity, we've been around long enough that we've been able to build a lot of the feature depth, where a CMMS that's been out here 1 year, or 2 years, hasn't. These are very powerful, complex systems that require a lot of time to build the features, and so you just may be looking at the wrong spot. And I invite you to come by our booth, talk with our team, and we can show you at the booth how we check.
There's going to be an explosion of vibe coding CMMS right now.
Well, that's
built a whole CMMS in a week.
That's even more terrifying in a lot of ways. Where I mean, these systems are so incredibly critical to your operations. You don't want to use a vibe-coded application that was written by someone that is most likely isn't an engineer. Like that's just terrifying.
Well, unfortunately, folks, we want to continue the conversation, but we've got to give enough time for the next session to start. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, gentlemen, for being on the panel. I hope this helped all of you.
If you have any more questions, come by either of our booths. I'm sure Igor would be happy to talk. I'd be happy to answer more.
If you have questions right now, grab one of these folks when you're out in the hall. Don't let them get away. Thank you, everyone.
Pilot on your CMMS project, visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.